Welcome to the College Football Bros podcast. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, on this episode, we're going to rank the top 15 quarterbacks in college football heading into the 2020 season. And just a quick reminder before we get into it, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CFB Bros. Subscribe right here on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think about our list. And that's about it.
Tough list to come up with.
Very tough list to make for sure.
Hard.
But,
Yep, difficult to wean them down. But I'm going to start out number 15, Kyle Trask of Florida. You know, he did such a great job coming in for Felipe Franks last year when he got injured a few games into the season. He's efficient, completed 67% of his passes, 25-7 touchdown to interception ratio. And I've mentioned before, I like how well he's performed against top competition. Against 3 top 10 teams last year, Georgia, LSU, and Auburn, he had 7 touchdowns, only 1 pick, and they were competitive for the most part in those games. Going into the a full off season where he's the guy compared to last year, he'll be able to develop even more under Dan Mullen, who I'm very high on in terms of as far as a quarterback guru, if you will. We've just seen his track record of with quarterbacks, so I don't see Trask regressing in his second year.
all right, number 14 on our list is Hendon Hooker at Virginia Tech. And he was a 4-star recruit a few years ago, finally got his opportunity to play last year. And the team was a ton better when he was in there. They were 6-2 in games that he started. He's a good runner, so he's got that element. And he was really efficient through the air, 9.6 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And Virginia Tech's got most of the supporting cast back around him. So I think it's going to be another really good year.
Yep, that's a good one, Mike. All right, moving on to number 13. He's turned into my boy, Kellen Mond. He's come a long way since his freshman year. I just think he's actually underrated now. I really do think he's been kind of helping carry that team during a little bit of a transition time with Jimbo Fisher. And I feel like he's kind of kept them really, really competitive. His stats, especially through the air, aren't going to wow you. I mean, he's around a 60% passer, and he does have over a 2-to-1 TD interception ratio, so that's good. But it's obvious he hasn't had the amount of weapons that some of the other teams have had. And then you got to factor in his schedule. I mean, they have had the toughest schedule in the country the past couple of years, playing in that SEC West and then tossing Clemson the past couple of years for him. So when you consider that and the fact that he actually did do well against those teams, I think I had him a little higher than 13th. I'm high on Mond, and I think he's underrated nationally.
I like it. Moving on to number 12, fourth bro, Jamie Newman from Georgia. The more I read about Newman, the more I start buying into him. I'm hoping that he meshes well with the new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, at Georgia. I think he'll be able to open up Georgia's offense, which has been lacking the last couple of years. He'll have more NFL talent around him compared to when he was at Wake. And when you look at Pro Football Focus, their stats loved him. Through the first 11 games last season, he was the 3rd highest graded quarterback behind only Joe Burrow and Justin Fields. So, decent company. He rated 2nd among all quarterbacks in deep throws, so passes that were greater than 20 yards. Fromm wasn't even in the top 30, so that added element hopefully will help Georgia. And then at Wake, he was in a system that was really primarily just a run-pass option. And I think that he, if he needs to run, he can still do that, but it's not going to be solely reliant on him. It'll be harder, I admit, without a full offseason of reps, but I like his talent, and I think he can help elevate Georgia.
All right, number 11 is De'Ara King at Miami, another transfer here. And first off, he's one of the most electric runners in college football. So that part of his game is guaranteed. As long as he's healthy, he's going to get you a lot of rushing yards. And then last year, the first few games through the air weren't great, but he still brought that run element. And then when you go back to the few years before, his passing was very good. So in his career, he has 50 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and a very solid 8.2 yards per attempt. So I think that part of his game gets a little underrated by people who are just looking at those first few games of last season.
Yeah, I mean, he's electric. There's no doubt about it. All right, let's move on to number 10. We got Spencer Rattler here from Oklahoma, the freshman coming in. I mean, it's for a guy that hasn't had played. It's like it's crazy to put him at 10th, but then you factor in
played a little bit at least, but
hasn't started, I should say.
Yeah, fair.
He's but to have him be 10th just speaks to the volumes, I guess, of Lincoln Riley and the OU program, of how they develop their quarterbacks. And then you factor in that he was a top tier 5-star recruit and just got all the physical tools that you would want. It just gives Lincoln Riley so many possibilities to work with. He can run, pass. So their offense ain't going to slow down. And I mean, you look at all the Heisman odds, he's already top 5 and all those odds. So it's just like putting him top 10, putting him at 10th might even be a little too low. Honestly, it might not be high enough. Considering the way OU's been playing. So, yep, he's going to be a dynamite player, no doubt about it.
OU quarterback's usually a good bet.
Yep.
Number 9, we have Micale Cunningham of Louisville. Now, he last year wasn't asked to do a whole lot in the passing game, but when he did pass, he was extremely efficient. 11.6 yards per attempt. That if he had enough attempts to qualify, would have been first in the nation, ahead of Joe Burrow, ahead of everybody. So
Tua.
That's pretty promising. And as far as his running ability, I saw a quote from him that said, "I've been able to run since I came out of the womb." So
he ran out.
Clearly, what's that?
He ran out.
Yeah, exactly. So clearly he has that ability as well. So
yeah,
I'm big. I think he's underrated nationally by a lot to people.
Yeah, I hope he kills it again. I mean, he's super fun to watch.
He really
I guess
is.
He just didn't get a ton of, you just didn't see him a whole lot because Louisville didn't. I mean, they were not nationally relevant for most of the year, and they didn't have a lot of pre-televised games going into last year. But anyways, let's move on to our next person on our list here. We got number 8. We got Tanner Morgan from Minnesota. It's been quite a leap here for Tanner Morgan. I mean, he was battling it out with just to be the quarterback for Minnesota last year. Zach Annexstad got injured in the preseason, which kind of just gave Morgan the job, and he wasn't for sure going to win it. But Minnesota fans are happy that it worked out the way it did. He absolutely killed it last year. His yards per attempt was over 10, just elite. He had some great weapons, but he certainly did very well. 30 touchdowns, just to 7 picks. His passing efficiency was just incredible. So, I mean, was only a sophomore last year as well. So, I mean, he's got a couple years, at least 1 year, but probably 2 years of good QB play there for Minnesota.
Sure. All right. Moving on to number 7 is Kedon Slovis of USC. And as a freshman last year, he had 72% completions, 30 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And yes, that Graham Harrell offense is definitely a great thing to be in, but you look at Matt Fink and JT Daniels' numbers combined, and they had 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So clearly, Kedon Slovis was part of the reason that USC's offense was so great. And this year, arguably, certainly a top 5 receiving core coming back for USC. So would expect another big year for Slovis.
Agreed. Yep. Moving on to an SC rival, Ian Book of Notre Dame. Book, he doesn't really get talked about much in the conversation of quarterbacks. He's 20-3 though as an Irish starter, and I've just been impressed how he's developed and improved under Brian Kelly. Last year alone, he had a 34-6 touchdown to interception ratio, and he added another 546 yards on the ground. He actually carried it for over 100 times the last couple of years, so he's a reliable runner. I really like how he finished last year in particular. Over their final 4 games, including their big bowl win against Iowa State, he completed over 63% of his passes, 13 touchdowns, and no picks. And I'm also encouraged for this upcoming year because he, of course, has a few years of experience, but most of that offensive line returns. So hopefully that kind of helps offset the loss of Chase Claypool. But the line up front will really help him.
Yeah, their line is one of the best in the nation this coming year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to number 5. We got Brock Purdy from Iowa State. He's been awesome. I mean, the system there, apparently you can churn out quarterbacks really well. I didn't for what was it, a couple years ago where they had a couple injuries. It seems like Kyle Kempt ended up being the guy, and
Yeah.
he was killing it. He won at OU. I think he was the guy that won at OU, right? So they just seem to plug it. But he's been awesome. There's no doubt about it. He averaged for his career is 2 years. He averages 9 yards per attempt, and he got even better going into his sophomore year. 27 touchdowns, 9 picks, and he's doing it at Iowa State. I mean, it's just awesome the way that they've been kind of elevating that program. So I don't know if he can do it a little bit on the ground too. He's just he's a great overall player.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it.
Sticking in the Big 12, number 4, Sam Ehlinger of Texas. I'm just enamored by Ehlinger's production and durability. If there was a most valuable player in college football, I'd argue he's been the most valuable to a team the last couple of years. I mean, he is, without him, Texas and Tom Herman might be in more trouble. He's just carried that offense the past couple of years. He's a threat both running and throwing. If he had a little bit more help around him on offense and especially the defense, I think Ehlinger's name would be ringing a little bit louder. Some of the stats, though, to back it up: 39 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards last year in total, 41 touchdowns 2 years ago. He's a 65% passer. He's run it over 300 times the last couple of years. He's not an easy quarterback to tackle.
2 years ago, it was just like, seemed like that was the offense for a while. It's just like him, quarterback keeper.
And you're wondering, like, is he going to survive and last? But he's been so durable, very reliable. I just don't see why Ehlinger can't have another strong year and wrap up a stellar Texas career.
All right. At number 3, we have another Sam Howell at North Carolina. And he was a top 100 recruit coming out of high school. Of course, Mac Brown stole him away from Florida State. And he ended up breaking the true freshman FBS record with 38 passing touchdowns last year. Just an insane year, especially given North Carolina had won 2 games the year before he got there. So now headed into 2020, all of his top receivers are back. He's going to have another monster year. And when you look at the Heisman odds, he's in the top 5 for that, which at North Carolina is a crazy accomplishment.
That's saying a lot. All right, let's move on to our obvious ones of this list. Number 2 here, we got Justin Fields from Ohio State. We kind of talked about it in other episodes, but I mean, the way he just came in there and just dominated, I don't think anybody expected it to be that good. You knew he had the talent. He was a 5-star, but you thought maybe he was I don't know. Maybe, I don't think he'd be this good because he did have to transfer away from Georgia because he wasn't going to start. So you'd think maybe he wouldn't be like elite, but wow, we were wrong about that. He couldn't have been better. Imagine if he had just kept that knee healthy, he could have been even better, which is kind of scary to think about. So, I mean, it's a clear choice for number 2 here. He could even make the argument he's number 1, but he was elite.
Absolutely, Ryan. Not going to disagree there. Not much debate then also with our number 1 guy, Trevor Lawrence of Clemson. He's just so gifted. We've seen how he's lifted Clemson to greater heights after replacing Kelly Bryant to end up winning a national title. And then last year, taking him to another national title, of course, losing to LSU. But the added element of him being able to run the ball was really unveiled last year. And it was seen predominantly in that Fiesta Bowl win against Ohio State, where they had that great comeback. I mean, that game alone on tape was just, there was a lot of wow factor. I mean, it was Fields and Lawrence on the field. It was a great game. But and then if you want to include the fact of the likelihood of being the number 1 NFL draft pick next year, he just seemed like a logical number 1 and a no doubt top 2 for our list.
All right, let's take a look at the full list then here. And as the viewers look at this list, who are some guys that were on your personal top 15 list that didn't quite make it to our final list?
I'll lead us off here with this one. So I had 2 guys on my top 15 that didn't make our collective top 15 group. I'll start off with the guy that I had number 12 was Chase Garbers from Cal. You just got to look to how Cal performs when he's been healthy and in the game. Last year they were 7-0 when he played most of the game. When he went out of the game, you had Devin Monster go in there, and it was just awful. He wasn't nearly as good as Garbers. And Garbers has stats. He has 14 picks. Nope, that wouldn't be very good. 14 TDs to 3 picks, and he can run a little bit. And I give him a lot of credit also because I think his supporting cast is just, of any of the guys that's on the Met that we're mentioning, I think he has the worst supporting cast of anybody here. I don't even think it's really that even close.
That's fair.
I guess I'll mention my second guy, Mac Jones from Alabama. I mean, I know he had a small sample size, but boy, it was impressive. And it's -2 throws against Auburn, and this guy was like about as perfect as you could get. So I think he's being a little underrated. I mean, when you have almost 11 yards per attempt, you're pretty darn good. I know they have good weapons there, but I mean, he was just competing with as well as Tua was. So I don't see why he shouldn't be a top 15 quarterback.
One of the guys under the radar that I had on my list was Dustin Crum of Kent State. Golden Flashes.
He was on my list as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, remember his name, people. He had a 20-2 touchdown interception ratio, very efficient, also ran it for over 700 yards. He was actually, according to Pro Football Focus, the second rated quarterback on play action. He scrambled a lot. He averaged 9.2 yards on scrambles. I mean, he was great. He did this behind a very poor offensive line as well. And
yeah, Kent State has not had good quarterback play, so to see him be that dang good is crazy.
That's awesome. And the last,
they haven't had good football play.
No,
but now they do.
Yeah, they do. They won a bowl game. A couple guys I did want to mention briefly, though. Jayden Daniels, love his poise and moxie at Arizona State. Had a bunch of clutch drives. He'll be fun to watch in the next couple of years. And then lastly, another guy in the G5 at SMU, Shane Buechele. With Sonny Dykes, he's going to put up more big numbers on top of what he did last year. Could help SMU be a factor in the AAC.
All right. I've also got some G5 guys. Obviously, I said Dustin Crum was on my list as well, but also Dillon Gabriel at UCF had a really good freshman year. So
lefty.
Yeah, super promising there. And then Brady White at Memphis. Hard to argue with the production he had last year. So sorry, no G5 guys made the final list, but individually we had some.
Crum was our 16th. So he was
Crum, yeah, he exactly.
Justin Crum, he was right there.
Yeah.
Crummy for him.
Yeah, exactly. Good one. We'll end on that. What a great joke. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to subscribe again and let us know in the comments what you think of our list. Who was too high, too low, biggest snub. We'd love to hear it. And we'll talk to you next time.